Do you see international relations as a battleground between power-hungry states? Or do you see it as a cooperative arena driven by economics and democracy? What if I told you that your beliefs and actions shape the international world you live in? Welcome to the theory of constructivism, where ideas can hold greater power than tanks. The theory of constructivism begins with the idea that international relations is a social construct governed by identities, ideas, norms, and discourse. Unlike realism and liberalism, which see international relations as static and material, constructivism views IR as dynamic and changeable. With the end of the Cold War and the dissolution of the USSR, there wasn't a clear explanation of how a great power can collapse so easily if the state's main goal is survival. The failure to predict and explain this event from the major IR theories at the start of the 1990s gave rise to constructivism. The term constructivism was first coined by Nicholas Onoff in his book, The World of Our Making, but it was Alexander Wendt's seminal article, Anarchy is What States Make of It, that really signaled the breakthrough of the theory. The title speaks for itself. Wendt criticized something fundamental to neo-realists as the anarchical structure and the idea that states will always push towards self-help and power-maximizing goals. According to Wendt, self-help and power politics are institutions, not essential features of anarchy. Anarchy is what states make of it. In simpler terms, state practices shape the international system, and process is what defines structure. Neo-realists believe power distribution drives state actions, but for Wendt and other constructivists, power alone cannot explain why states react in a certain way. States are not all the same. They have unique histories, cultures, identities, and foreign policy preferences, all operating within a shared context of the international system. Looking at power with a more nuanced view, constructivists shift from the concept of balance of power towards balance of threat. Think of it like this. Why does the United States feel more threatened by one nuclear warhead from North Korea than by 500 warheads from the United Kingdom? It is the perception of threat that drives the action of states. But why do states perceive each other as either friends or enemies in the first place? Wendt highlights this example with a thought experiment involving two actors, Alter and Ego, meeting on a barren planet without pre-existing social conventions, a scenario that can be extended to a hypothetical human-alien encounter. How will the first contact unfold in both scenarios? Will it be hostile, cooperative, or neutral? The outcome will depend on social interactions, the development of shared understandings, and interpretations of each other's actions. According to Wendt, identities are the basis of interests. For constructivists, all states have a unique identity that is based on internal or external social interactions, ideas, and discourse. This societal discourse is created by individuals and gives power and meaning to certain ideas. Therefore, individuals have the power to influence and change the structure of the system, with powerful individuals holding even greater influence in the system. All of these things combined, discourse, culture, history, and other factors, can determine the state's identity and its interests. But what makes a state a state? What makes the US a state? Is it the tanks, government, military, language, or all the things combined? Constructivists will say that a state, as all things are, is a social construct. It exists only because people believe in it, and at some point, their beliefs created the United States. If people stop believing in the idea of the United States, things can change fast. For constructivists, the central idea of states having sovereignty is also a social construct. Wendt claims that sovereignty only exists because of intersubjective understandings and expectations between states. So all sovereign states constitute a particular form of community, where identities are relational. To expect countries to abide by and respect your sovereignty in international relations, you must return the favor. If we expand on this notion, states as much as individuals follow certain social rules and norms of how they ought to behave. This means states create, shape, maintain, and are influenced by the same norms. For instance, ask yourself why nobody has used the nuclear bomb in warfare since 1945. Surely, if countries want to defeat their enemies, that is the fastest way to get to their end objective. The reason why countries don't use nuclear bombs is because despite their power, their use is seen as destructive and barbaric. Creating a nuclear taboo as highlighted by scholar Nina Tannenwald. Why countries behave in this way, constructivists argue, is because they follow the logic of appropriateness. This is in stark contrast with the logic of consequentialism, prevalent in realism and liberalism. This logic suggests that we base our decision-making on a given role or identity. We can think of these norms as unwritten social rules of the system. Examples will be international humanitarian aid, environmental protection, the principle of sovereignty, and many more. We follow and adhere to these rules either because they are institutionalized or because we see them as natural, rightful, expected, and sustained over time. But how are norms established in the first place? One of the most important contributions constructivists emphasize is the concept of norm emergence, as outlined by Martha Finnemore and Catherine Sickink in 1998, who identified 3 stages of the norm life cycle. The first stage is norm emergence, where norm entrepreneurs seek to persuade others to adopt their ideas. The second stage is the norm cascade, which happens when a norm has broad acceptance, with norm leaders pressuring others to adopt the norm. And the last stage is norm internalization, when the norm is already accepted and is nearly automatic. A good example will be environmental protection, and the goal of fighting climate change, the success of which will depend on norm internalization and societal pressures. So far, we have seen that constructivism has questioned all the main assumptions of the main traditional IR theories. But what does the theory bring to the field for the future of international relations? One major critique of constructivism is that it lacks predictability. Also, the theory's central focus on ideational factors can underestimate the role of material forces. A country can decide to act a certain way based on ideation, but it cannot ignore the material forces in its environment. Furthermore, it is still state-centered in its analysis, and constructivists tend to overemphasize the ability of change in international relations, ignoring some persistent international structures. Based on the previous discussion, some suggest that constructivism may not be a standalone theory, but rather an enhancer for existing theories, adding depth and context. In conclusion, constructivism asserts that reality is created through social interactions, making international relations dynamic and not solely based on material forces. States shape the system, driven by unique identities formed from interactions, history, culture, and norms. Ideas are powerful, and individuals have the agency to change the world. If you like this video, hit the like button and let us know in the comments if we missed any important aspects. To learn more about major IR theories like realism and liberalism, check out our other videos. See you next time.